What's going on, guys? Out on the road this week, but nonetheless, that's not going to stop us from doing what we do. And so Zoran Mamdani just got exposed on Meet the Press right to his face for exactly what he's been showing himself to be: a fake, a fraud, pretender, a hypocrite. And right on cue, his supporters are already cracking. They're furious after watching him cozy up to President Trump. Yes, he was cozying up with the president. All of this, a quite different contrast from the fiery tough guy act we saw perform during his campaign, when he promised he would battle like it was life or death. And in his victory speech on election night, telling the president to turn the volume up. But the moment the cameras turned on and Trump walked in, the version of the man we saw was someone who let Trump handle him like he was a rookie on national television. And the host didn't let him hide from that reality. They brought those concerns straight to him. No filter, no hand holding. And even though he tried to dodge, deflect, and slide his way around every question, the host still didn't budge. But it didn't matter. The damage has already been done. As always, the best way you can show your support and that you enjoy the content is by smashing that thumbs up. That tells me you like the video, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. But let's go ahead and jump right into it, where Zoran is confronted with, hey, do you still think Trump is a fascist? And, well, listen to his answer.
To do so.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it." So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do.
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
Now, if you let Zoran tell it, he'll spin it like he stood 10 toes down, like he looked Trump right in the eye, like he looked the media right in the eye, and repeated every tough line he ever said on the campaign trail. He wants everyone to believe he never flinched, he never folded, he never backed off. But that's not what happened. Not even close.
Clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
I mean, Zoran, come on. This reminds me of the classic tough guy act, the one where the guy talks all big and tough, big and bad, beating his chest like he's ready for war. Then the second his opponent actually shows up, reality hits, and now he suddenly becomes quiet, humble even, searching for words or trying to find common ground. And then the second the pressure is gone, all of a sudden he's loud and bold again. It's funny how that works, right? And honestly, this whole situation is fascinating because Democrats have made it crystal clear where they stand with this president. They're here to obstruct and create chaos. That's why they shut down the government. That's why their base is out protesting ICE, stopping them from doing their job. That's why at every turn, they try and stop the president from doing the job that he's been tasked to do for the American people. Calling him a fascist, insisting that he's a danger to the American people, insisting there's no room for negotiation or bipartisanship, well, unless it's fully on their terms. But now here comes the new blood of the Democrat Party, Zoran, suddenly saying, well, Trump, he's actually not that bad. I don't know what these guys over here were kind of talking about. We were able to find some common ground. I don't know what all that Hitler talk was about. I can work with them. It's funny how quickly the tune changes when they're face to face with the man they claim everyone in America should fear.
You raised the issue of sanctuary cities, so I want to speak to you more broadly about the issue of immigration. This is one that is so critical to New York, the rest of the country as well. One of your top supporters, Senator Bernie Sanders, recently weighed in on President Trump's record managing the border. He compared it to former President Biden. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Trump did a better job. I don't like Trump. We should have a secure border, and it ain't that hard to do. Biden didn't do it. Those before him did not do it. We should have a secure border, period.
Do you agree with Senator Bernie Sanders that President Trump has done a better job securing the border than former President Biden?
I haven't thought much about comparing presidents on the question of securing the border. I think it's important that it's secure, and I also think it's important that we have an immigration system that is humane. And that's what I spoke about with the president, is that New Yorkers want to see humanity in the policies that are being implemented.
Do you give President Trump some credit for the work that he's done to make the border, in Senator Sanders' estimation, more secure?
What I give President Trump credit for is the meeting that we had yesterday was one that was focused on how we could work together for New Yorkers. And the place that we could do so most effectively, frankly, is ensuring every New Yorker can afford the city they call home.
I mean, seriously, even Bernie Sanders can admit a country needs a functioning border. But Zoran, no, he can't admit that. Once again, back to the same old fake tough guy talking points, because the pressure's no longer on. He's no longer in front of the president, so he doesn't have to worry about actually standing on any type of principle. He could just say what his audience wants to hear. And giving the president credit for something that was so blatantly obvious that it was needed would not have been a hard leap to make. Anyone operating from logic or honesty, anybody who wants to be viewed as credible, can acknowledge that Donald Trump did a strong job on border security. The only ones who refuse to bring themselves to admitting that reality are those who have severe cases of Trump derangement syndrome, globalists who think that there are no such thing as borders, we're on stolen land, and that it should be just for everyone. No one should have to have any citizenship anywhere. It's everybody's to share. And people who just have so much contempt for America. That's all. That's the only way you do not see what the president has done with the border as a net positive in every way.
You've also said in the past that President Trump has engaged in a, quote, attack on our democracy. You've called him a despot. Do you still believe President Trump is a threat to the democracy?
Everything that I've said in the past, I continue to believe. And that's the thing that I think is important in our politics, is that we don't shy away from where we have disagreements, but we understand what it is that brings us to that table. Because I'm not coming into the Oval Office to make a point or make a stand. I'm coming in there to deliver for New Yorkers. And a few weeks ago, I was asked by a reporter 3 words to describe myself. I said, New York City. And that's what animated that conversation. How do we deliver for the people of New York City?
I think that some of your supporters would be curious to know. You say you stand by your past statements that, yes, he's a threat to the democracy. How do you square working with someone who you still think is a threat to the democracy?
I think working for the people of New York City demands that you work with everyone and anyone, and that you always look to find those areas of agreement while not overlooking the places of disagreement. And I think this was something that came up in our meeting. We spoke about immigration. We spoke about the fact that in New York City, we have sanctuary city policies that allow for the city to work with the federal government on around 170 serious crimes. The concern for so many New Yorkers comes about anything beyond that. And I spoke about the importance of us being able to protect New Yorkers, and some of the incidents that we see, they do not do that.
What this really exposes is how little Democrats stand behind their own rhetoric, and how casually they're willing to manipulate language to keep the outrage without the accountability. They're willing to slap the word fascist on Donald Trump for carrying out basic law enforcement with the intent and hoping that people connected to some of the worst monsters in history. But the moment they're confronted with the weight of their own words, suddenly it's figurative, symbolic, not to be taken literally. They want the emotional punch of being able to call Trump Hitler, but then the flexibility of being able to walk it back whenever it becomes inconvenient. And that's exactly the trap Zoran now finds himself in. His campaign wasn't just about affordability or socialist talking points. It was fueled by the idea that Democrats were too soft on Trump and that he would be the one to finally take a hard stand. He positioned himself as the firebrand, the one who despised Trump, the one who saw him as an existential danger to the country. And that's not casual disagreement. If you truly believe someone is a dictator in waiting, a true threat to democracy, you don't then pivot into, well, I could work with the guy. The moment the cameras come on and the real man is sitting right there next to you. Yet that's exactly what Zoran did. And it shows how empty and performative all this rhetoric really is. Democrats and Republicans have always had different ways of which they see the United States should be governed. But when you get to the point where now you are referring to the president as a fascist or associating him with some of the most vile and grotesque leaders in world history, you've gone beyond just some disagreements with how policies should be enacted or a budget plan for the country. No, you've gone far beyond that.
Well, let me ask you about the other threat that we heard from President Trump to send troops to New York City to address issues of crime and immigration. We've seen him do this in other major cities. Did you get any assurances in your meeting, Mayor-elect Mamdani, that President Trump will not send troops into New York?
No, I told the president that the cornerstone of an affordability agenda is public safety, and that it is critically important to me. And for all that has been said and all that has been spoken about, and the tens of millions of dollars looking to make New Yorkers fearful of that question, the truth of it is, in fact, that I'm looking forward to working with the NYPD to deliver on that. And I shared with the president that my decision to retain Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch is in large part a recognition of the fact that in her time leading the NYPD, she has driven down crime across the 5 boroughs while starting to uproot corruption that was endemic in the top echelons of that department under Mayor Adams.
And I'm going to follow up with you on your decision to keep Commissioner Tisch. But to this core question that I think so many New Yorkers are curious to know the answer to, what did President Trump say to you? Did he assure you he will not send troops into New York?
He told me that he cared deeply about public safety. I said I cared deeply about the same.
But did he say he wouldn't send troops?
What I told him is that what separates New York City from anywhere else in the country is we have the NYPD. And I trust the NYPD to deliver public safety. And to me, that is something that I know that they can do, that they have done, and they will continue to do under my leadership.
So he didn't rule it out in your meeting?
I made it very clear what we wanted to do was to deliver public safety and affordability, and the NYPD would be the ones to do so.
Zoran might hold the title of New York City's mayor, but let's not kid ourselves. The position comes with basically no real bargaining power. Anything major that he wants to accomplish still requires the cooperation from the governor, and in many cases, the cooperation of the president. And so after everything, what did he actually walk away with? And the answer is a big, fat nothing. No concessions, not one. No guarantees, not any. Not one single policy win. Not at all.
You take me to my next question, which is about really the central issue of your campaign, affordability. You have said that you want to raise $9 billion in new taxes, increasing taxes on the wealthy, on businesses, in order to fund your key policies like universal child care, which you mentioned. You would need Governor Kathy Hochul to be on board with this. You'd need her signature. She has never publicly committed to increasing taxes. I know you just spoke with her. Mr. Mayor-elect, did Governor Hochul commit to you that she will support and sign on to your plan to increase taxes?
The governor and I had a productive conversation, and what we both committed to is working together for the affordability agenda. And one thing I appreciate of the many about Governor Hochul is that she's been focused not just on affordability, but specifically on universal child care for quite some time. And now is the time to bring a partner forward in City Hall. And I've said plainly and openly that I believe that these are 2 tax proposals that make sense, increasing the personal income taxes on New Yorkers making $1 million or more by just 2%, increasing the top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey. And what I've also said is more important than how we fund something is that we fund something. And if there are additional or alternate revenue streams to do so, I will accept them and I will celebrate them, because the most important thing is to actually deliver for the New Yorkers who right now can't even conceive of having a family in New York City because of how expensive we've made childcare across the 5 boroughs.
Well, and your entire agenda is incredibly ambitious: universal child care, free buses, among other things, lowering rent. Can you deliver on this agenda without Governor Hochul agreeing to increase taxes?
Well, I'm thankful that I'm not going to have to engage in the hypothetical, because I am confident of the 2 of us working together to deliver on this agenda and ensure that finally, and this goes back to just that portrait of FDR, we look at what politics has been in the past. It has been there in the moments of such transformation, meeting the scale of the crisis. We can do that again.
So just yes or no, you think she'll raise taxes?
I think she'll work with me to deliver on affordability. I think raising taxes make the most sense. If there's any alternative that raises the same amount of money, I'm open.
Let's call this what it is. His agenda isn't going anywhere. New York City, hate to break it to you, newsflash, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. And he's not even in office yet. That doesn't happen until January. And every day leading up to that moment is going to feel like a slow, painful reality for all of Mamdani's supporters. They're finally going to have to confront the reality that the guy they voted for is not the guy that they're actually going to get. And since none of the fantasy freebies that he promised are materializing, he now is being forced to scramble to keep federal funding just so New York can function at the bare minimum. But honestly, New York City can only blame themselves. They literally voted for the guy who said, "Vote for me, I'll make it free." And you won't have to pay for it because I'll get the rich people too. How much logical sense does that make? If the far left hasn't realized it already, newsflash, you got played. They fell for the performance. They believed all the hype. But Zoran, he's no revolutionary, he's no warrior, he's no anti-Trump crusader ready to shake up the system. He's just another established Democrat in a new costume, a bargain bin Obama. A smooth talking salesman that was able to sell a bunch of naive, young, inexperienced, left-wing lunatic activists a bunch of empty promises. And now they're going to be forced to confront the reality that all that he said he was magically going to be able to provide, not so much. But now let me hear back from you. Questions, comments, those of your feedback, drop them down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget, best way you can show your support for the content is by smashing that thumbs up. That tells me you like the video. And subscribe for more breakdowns like this. And as always, until next time.